Again, my name is Isiah Anderson Jr., and I want to welcome you here to our 6th annual City of Seattle celebration for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And his works, his life, and the dream that he wanted us to all live in. So we're going to keep this program going. We're going to have a native land recognition right now by Matt, is it Remle? Remle, thank you so much. So please, a round of applause for our native recognition.
Darkiapi. Chante waste na pe chius apelo, wakia wanatana machi apelo, Ian waslaha amataha, Ate wayagi Charles Remle, Ina wayagi Donna Harrison, Tokashila wakantaka, Petukile wopila, Petukile wo ashti yoha. Lena Duwamish makoche gi wan wichaki ayo mini wichoni gi wan wichaki ayo. Well, good evening. My English name's Matt Remle. My Lakota name's Wakian Wa'anatan from Standing Rock, and just giving acknowledgement first and foremost to our Duwamish host relatives. Thank you for allowing us to be here, guests on your lands. So this is Owashte, Matt Remle plus several. So when Marta asked to come, she said, how many singers might be coming? I said, well, with natives, it's kind of hard to tell. It might just be me. It might be a lot of us. So tonight, it's a lot of us. So.
Yeah.
our native land recognition by Matt and his family and others. Yes. All right. And so now I'm going to ask you all to stand once again as we prepare for those of you who would like to stand for our Star-Spangled Banner by our Teen Summer Musical. I want to introduce those young people. Just raise your hand when I introduce you. Samara Jeffries, Isaiah Banks, Mr. Trenton Walker, and this beautiful young lady here, Sydney Coleman, is getting ready to sing for you.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that Star-Spangled Banner wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Miss Sydney Coleman. We teach them every year when you get an opportunity to get on stage, show out. That's what she just did right there, just in case y'all wondering. Somebody asks you how she did, you say she showed out. That's the term you want to use right there. Remain standing, y'all, while we welcome to the stage First AME Mass Choir singing the Black National Anthem. Is everybody having a good time so far? You're having a good time so far? All right. Was it worth the traffic and the rain and all that? Yeah. I'm gonna be transparent with you. I went to the old spot. Yeah, I got dropped off at First Baptist. Yeah, and the doors were locked. I couldn't get in. So I assumed I had to just call somebody. And then when I realized I couldn't get in, I had to look at the flyer again and said, oh, you at the wrong spot. So I Ubered here from downtown, me and the young people and my wife, yes. I'm glad I made it, you hear me? I hate to think I'd miss out on this. All right, please put your hands together for First AME Choir. First AME choir, y'all. And now we are going to have greetings from Mayor Durkan. I do want to tell you, though, you guys get to see a lot of choirs get up and do their thing, and you see the director doing their thing. What you don't get to see the director doing is the facial expressions. For those of you that's ever been in a choir where the director is serious about their business of directing, it looks good like this. What it's really like is this.
Hi everyone, it's Mayor Jenny Durkan. Welcome to the city's 6th annual Unity Day celebration honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a champion for justice, for marginalized people, and for those who were refused access to the American dream. He was a teacher, and he challenged all of us to make freedom a reality for all people. His courage, his words, his determination, and his hope are as important today as they were when he marched and implored our nation to justice. Dr. King started the march, and it is up to us to continue marching. As you gather today, I hope you'll think about how far we've come and recommit to the work that remains ahead of us. I know I do every day. Just this week, I was proud to sign an executive order to combat the rise of hate crimes and crimes of bias in Seattle. As we look ahead, I hope you'll join me in the fight for a more just Seattle. I also want to congratulate tonight's honorees, Cecile Hansen, Larry Gossett, and Bruce Harrell. You are great examples of leadership, and I am thankful for all you've done to move our community, our city, and our country forward. Thank you to everyone for coming together, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hello, ooh, there it is. I was getting ready to cut her off like she cut me off, but I let her do her thing. I let the mayor do her thing. You know, me and the mayor's cool though. We cool. Me and the mayor's cool. Very first time I met her, she injured me. Listen, I know y'all thinking I'm joking, but I'm not. Went to shake her hand, and she hugged me, and you know the people that give you the pat on the back? I guess she thought I was choking. I don't know, but she hit me real hard like that. And I went home, and I had to take 2 days off work, but I worked for the city, so I got paid for it. I was all right. All right, everybody still having a good time? All right. Well, we are now going to have opening and welcoming remarks from Councilmember Tammy Morales. Please put your hands together for her right now.
Wow, he is much taller than I am. Hi, everyone. How's it going this evening? Isiah, thank you very much for your introduction. And can we take a moment to appreciate the blessing and welcome from Matt Remle and our native neighbors, please? I want to thank them for their blessing, and I want to thank them for the honor of welcoming us to share this land with you. Thank you. And can we also give another round of applause to the First AME Choir, please? What an amazing, amazing performance. Thank you for your inspiration. I also want to acknowledge the director of Seattle's Office of Civil Rights, Mariko Lockhart. Is Mariko here somewhere? I know all the staff are here, way back there. And of course, tonight's award winners, Cecile Hansen, Larry Gossett, and Bruce Harrell. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing from all of you. Can we give them a round of applause too, please? And Seattle's own Ijeoma Oluo, who's going to be our keynote speaker tonight. I'm looking very forward to hearing from her. So why are we here tonight? We're here because we share the sense of urgency necessary to repair the harm that's been done to our communities, to our displaced communities, to our neighbors who have moved out, whether from their housing or from their businesses. Because what we want to do tonight, starting here, is to build power in our community. That's how we're going to address the changes that we need to see. Tonight, on this second to last day of February, for a few more hours, it is Black History Month, we will celebrate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. In 1967, at a speech at Stanford University, Dr. King described how communities of color are, and I quote, perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. Not a lot has changed in 50 years. And while it's true that our Black and brown neighbors, especially here in Seattle, are resilient and strong and driving the kind of change that we need to see, the truth is that we in Seattle are still struggling with this challenge. Dr. King's quote was true 50 years ago, but it is still true today. Some people like to think of Seattle as a liberal beacon, but as our own keynote Ijeoma Oluo said last year during a conversation with Charles Mudede on this same stage, we are not a liberal city. She also pointed out that part of the reason is because our systems are inherently racist and unjust. Seattle's communities of color still experience not just economic disparity, but economic displacement from their neighborhoods, and we find ourselves in this position because of the history of redlining and generations of racial discrimination that have left many unable to accumulate wealth for their families. The displacement that comes with this is hollowing out our communities, and we see that happening every day here in Seattle. We find ourselves here because until now, power has rested in the hands of too few people. Power brokers, until now, have set the rules for how our city functions. Then they blame poor people, working people, people of color, for making poor choices in a system that was set up for them to fail in the first place. In a narrative that keeps communities of color down. Earlier this week, the council was visited by former Councilmember Larry Gossett and by Bruce Harrell. As you all know, Councilmember Gossett is one of the four original Four Amigos, or Gang of Four, as they're more commonly known. And tonight we're standing here in the shadow of their legacy. Just like Larry and Bob and Roberto and Bernie, as they did decades ago, we must now stand together today, now, and demand our right to the city and dismantle the structural racism that is keeping our communities down. We have to start that and commit to that today. So I ask you, what will our legacy be? How will Seattle remember this group of us gathered here tonight as we begin the next step in our journey? When our community, this community, is willing to rewrite the rules of power, when we are the drivers of the kind of change that we need, we can accomplish so much. We must reject a scarcity mentality that asks little of the wealthy while withholding resources from those who need it most. We must rewrite the rules of power and refuse to fight over crumbs. In 2017, at this same event, on this same stage, Angela Davis spoke to us. And she has said before, and reminds us today, I will remind us today, that we must no longer accept the things we cannot change. We must change the things we cannot accept. That's what we're here to do to begin tonight. And I want to thank you for stepping into this journey with our communities. Our ideas, our passion, our positive vision for the future, this is how we will begin to make the change that we need to see in our community. Because we will rewrite the rules of power in this city for our communities of color, for our working families, and for everyone who deserves a chance to share in this city's prosperity. Thank you very much. And now please join me in welcoming Jennifer Samuels to the stage to present our Salute to Greatness Awards. Jennifer.
Good evening. How are you? Excellent, excellent. You're looking good.
Good evening. My name is Steve Sneed, and I'm here to help in the presenting of a Salute to Greatness Award. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a minister and activist who became known as the leader of the civil rights movement during the 50s and 60s, fought for civil and human rights and peace for all mankind. Coretta Scott King, founder of the King Center in Atlanta, determined that it was the mission of the King Center to recognize the leadership of those who carried on the work of building a just, humane, and peaceful world. A peaceful world through their work and actions in the spirit of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. The King Center is the official living memorial and nonprofit organization committed to educating the world on the life, legacy, and teachings of Dr. King. The center serves to inspire new generations to carry forward King's unfinished work, strengthen causes, and empower change makers.
The trustees of the King Center resoundingly approved of this event and this portion of the program. The King Center's Salute to Greatness. This recognition is for our honorees. I would be grateful if they would join us on the stage at this time. Yes, please come up. Elder Cecile Hansen, Chair of the Duwamish Tribe. Former King County Councilmember Larry Gossett, and former Seattle City Council member, President Bruce Harrell. The honorees being awarded this one-of-a-kind trophy, only 3 in the world, especially designed by Donald Bermudez and sent to us from Atlanta, Georgia, and commissioned for those honorees. And tonight, they are being presented to
Elder Cecile Hansen, Chair of the Duwamish Tribe.
Say your speech, right?
Okay, you got it? Yeah, you got it? Who has it? You have it? Yeah, Bruce, okay.
Sister Cecile Hansen, my heart goes out to you. I feel like you're a mother, a grandmother, a sister, everything to me, and I just am so honored to be able to present you with this award. This is the beautiful award that she is receiving this evening, and we would like her to say a few words on receiving the award.
I must say, after I found out I was supposed to be at this great occasion, that I said, oh my gosh, I am, well, kind of speechless, but I'm not really. Having many speeches back in DC, all over the country, but I must say I'm overwhelmed. I'm honored to represent the Duwamish tribe, and all our people, our leaders from Chief Seattle right down to my being the chair of the Duwamish tribe. And I must say that this is really overwhelming, but I am honored to represent the tribe and to accept this award. It's overwhelming. Thank you very much.
Please sit down. Please sit down with you. All three leaders have modeled the service Dr. King did throughout his life. We are truly a better world because of the sacrifice, leadership, vision, and energy of these individuals. And by this presentation, we are holding them up as an inspiration to others. At this time, we would like former King County Councilmember Larry Gossett to come up. Oh, there it is. It's on there.
This program, though, is reminiscent of a speech that Martin Luther King gave on February 4th, 1968, at his old church, where his father was still the pastor, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was entitled The Drum Major's Instinct. And he talked about the fact that there's nothing wrong with people striving to be leaders, striving to be recognized, striving to set him or herself apart from others. But the only legitimate way, said he, that can be done if the focus is on what they're doing in terms of serving the people. And he said, that's what I want to be noted for, not my Nobel Peace Prize. Not getting, this is the 17th recognition and special trophy like this I've gotten since January 1st. And I appreciate it. But what I want to be recognized for is the service, the feeding the hungry that we did at camp, the leading effort to rename this county after Dr. King, for working, for organizing the working class and the poor in this community to ratchet down significantly the number of brothers and sisters incarcerated in the King County adult jail and juvenile jail. And in closing, it really will do my heart and spirit a lot of good if the remarks that I've just made end up inspiring many of y'all to take up the gauntlet of serving the people in any way that you can, because you don't have to be all skilled or a college graduate to serve the people. In closing, Martin Luther King Jr. said, we all can serve. Thank you very much.
Just earlier, Marta just shared with you that the trustees of the King Center resoundingly agreed to do this for these three individuals. It was unanimous. And that's why they allowed us to do the King Center salute to greatness and to honor these three individuals. The last individual is former Seattle City Council President Bruce Harrell.
Thank you very much. You know, President Donald Trump was right about one thing. Now I got your attention, right? I don't know how I'd possibly finish that sentence, by the way. I'm always a little reluctant to receive awards like this because there's just so much work that has to be done, so much work that has to be done. When I heard Councilmember Morales quote Dr. King 50 years ago, and I'll tell you, it's really honored being here with my sister and brother. Thank you very humbly for the award. When I heard Councilmember Morales quote Dr. King 50 years ago, it reminds me in the year 1972, and I see some gray hair out there, so don't act like you weren't born in 1972 or before. When I started high school with that guy, he's 2 years older than me, though, by the way. He was a junior when I started, that the president was being impeached. We were in a controversial war, and no one knew why we're even fighting the war, questioning the morality of the war, the Vietnam War. Women's rights, gender rights were being yelled at the top of our lungs because we realized the institutional unfairness that women had experienced for hundreds of years. Police brutality was in the newspaper and on the TV every day. The slogan, the affirmation that black is beautiful and black power was constantly said in African American communities to reaffirm the beauty in our communities. Corporate greed was talked about, and that was 50 years ago. So when I hear that, I take pause to say, well, what does that really mean to you and I? Does it mean we just can't move the needle? Our country's just destined for doom? I don't think that's what it means. What I think that it means is that, number one, our hope is always in the young people, because we were all young then. Our hope will always be in the young people. And the hope will be in what you see and hear. Different backgrounds, different ages, different ethnicities, different religions. The hope will always be in our internal struggle, our humanness together. And I think that's what unity is about, and that's what Black history is about. It's a study of history to look at our common experience. It doesn't mean that we failed in 50 years. It just means that those forces, that evil out there has been around 50 years ago, and will be here 50 years from now. But we have to hold each other up. And so my last point is simply this. On our side, we must stop fighting with one another. Thank you very much.
You guys, please put your hands together one more time for our honorees. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that hug and congratulations to Larry Gossett after he finished talking. You can't hear them, but I can. They were like, "You did it, you did it. You did it. Oh my God, you did it. You didn't talk long. You did it." They were so happy. They were happy. You know, with Larry, you normally got to give him a tap on the shoulder 3-4 times. Have somebody run across the stage going like this. But he's done. That's good. One more time, y'all, for our honorees. All right.
So, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker this evening, Ijeoma Oluo. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I'm kind of fangirling here. I'm sure many of you would be too. We know Ijeoma as an activist, an author, a mother, a self-proclaimed internet yeller. But we also know her as a mentor, as a strong community member. She has been teaching writers' workshops, for example, at some of the public libraries, helping our young people and community members who want to learn the craft of storytelling, but might not have access to those kinds of educational opportunities in other venues. So she's been really committed to making sure that she amplifies the voices of our neighbors through this kind of writers' workshops, and I think that that in itself deserves a round of applause. I also happen to know her as my maven of makeup on the Twitter. If anybody sees her posts of her makeup of the day, it's really quite something. I'm also very proud to have her as a constituent from South Seattle. Yes. Her writing has been featured in the Washington Post. Wow, sorry, really. I'll just do this. Washington Post, Time Magazine, Elle Magazine, The Guardian, and other outlets too numerous to count. Let me just take it off. Yeah. There we go. It's all right, it's all good. Her books, including her earlier works, such as the badass feminist coloring books, yes, have been praised coast to coast. And just this week, her book, So You Want to Talk About Race, entered number 4 on the New York Times National Bestseller List. Congratulations. Her work and writing on some of today's most charged topics, race, social justice, privilege, oppression, has been called both candid and courageous. Ijeoma uses language to talk about things that is at once bold and unapologetic and funny, and offers us a better way of showing what connection can be made, particularly across the internet divide. In other words, Ijeoma asks what many of us are afraid to ask, but what must be addressed if we are to move forward as a country. Now, y'all, I have to say I'm very proud of the fact that we were both born in Texas, but that's where our paths diverged. I grew up in San Antonio, if anybody's interested. She grew up right here, just north of here in Linwood, attended college in Bellingham, and after joining the tech world, started a great blog, but which she unfortunately found unfulfilling. For us, that was a blessing, because that was what really started her path toward writing and where we find her today. It's hard to imagine a world without Ijeoma's writing, or the work and presence and person that she is right here in our community. She asks us again and again and again, please understand why this matters so much. I'm delighted to welcome her on stage. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Ijeoma Oluo. Is she going to be here? I broke them up.
Hello. Well, now that the mic has already been pre-dropped, I feel like a lot of the pressure's off. How's everybody doing? I am very excited to be here and to speak with y'all today. Whatever affects one directly affects one indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. We talk about unity a lot. It's the theme of today. It is the theme of the day. But we rarely talk about it in the way in which Dr. King talked about unity. Right now, we talk about unity when we talk about the current political environment. What does unity mean for party? What does it mean for your movement? Are we all feminists? Are we all liberals? Are we all Democrats? Are we all American? What does it mean to practice unity in 2020? Do our identities bond us? Do they divide us? Do they give us purpose, or do they distract us? If you are wondering what unity is and you do a Google search, you're going to find an endless amount of differing opinions of what it means to stand in unity and what is preventing unity in our society. Nobody can seem to agree what unity is, and it seems that the more that we talk about it, the further apart we are. For many, unity is a call to set aside our squabbling and get back to the agenda that we all somehow agreed upon. For others, that same call of unity is a call to abandon our communities, our identities, and to sacrifice ourselves and our needs for a greater good that seems to need so much less than us, and yet insists that its needs are so much more urgent. I have been asked to show unity by being less Black, by being less of a woman, by being less queer. I have been asked to show unity by being less angry, less frightened, less hurt, less visible, less demanding, less proud. All in the name of unity. And yet, for some reason, unity seems to have me always standing outside of myself and my community in order to stand next to people more privileged than me. And it never seems that unity has those with more power and privilege and safety and resources standing next to me and mine and asking, what can I do? I do not think that this is the unity that Dr. King envisioned. In the city of Seattle, the median white household income is $105,000. The median income for Latino households is $67,000. For Native households, it's $64,000. For Black households, it's $42,000. Nearly half of Black households in Seattle make less than $35,000 a year, in a city where the median white household makes over $100,000. In the Seattle area, over 63% of white households own their homes, while only 28% of Black households do. And while we make up 7% of the population in this city, we make up over 30% of arrests. I know this is difficult, but the mic is gonna have to listen. All right, what if I start up here? I'll buy myself more time. In 2017, the average Black student has been let down by Seattle schools to the point that they're testing 3.7 grade levels behind white students. Right now, our Black and brown and Native community members are being pushed out of their neighborhoods due to rising rents and home prices. Right now, our community members struggling with addiction and homelessness are being treated like threats and nuisances instead of our friends, neighbors, and family. And no, Seattle is not dying. But every time we decide that people are too poor, too troubled, too desperate to be treated like human beings, we risk a fate worse than death. We risk a life without our souls. So I've described some of what unity does not look like. But this is not a, Ijeoma, what does unity not look like day? Although one day I hope that you'll have that day in my honor. So what does unity look like? What does unity look like when we look beyond our fractured political climate? What does it look like when we view the stark numbers I just gave you and see the people behind them? Let me tell you what unity means to me. Unity means that we recognize our own value comes not from our status, our wealth, our degrees, or our titles. Our value lies in the beautiful and endless potential of our humanity. That value shines brightest whenever we see its reflection in someone else. And it dims whenever we look at a fellow human being and refuse to see. Unity lies in the recognition that when we stand with the most marginalized, all of our needs will be met. Unity is found where we seek common ground when our goals align, and when we realize that the pursuit of freedom is a great enough common goal to have us continuously standing with each other, even if we cannot see our own immediate personal benefit. So those are nice words. That's a nice attitude to go into life, but beyond vague sentiment, beyond a pleasant turn of phrase, what does this mean when you go out into the world? One of the things that I've noticed in my years of speaking and writing on issues of race and identity and privilege and oppression is that people often come to hear me speak so they can hear about how someone else is the problem. They want to come and hear about how they can talk to somebody else about what they need to do. But trust me, we did not get where we are as a society because someone else screwed up. We all have work to do. So, in the day-to-day actions, here are some things that unity means to me. Unity means that you will expect your children's teachers to celebrate the history and achievements of Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Native people in all months of the year, even if your kid is a white American. Unity means that you will expect our police force to protect and serve all people in this city, and you will hold them and city officials accountable when they do not, even if you've never personally had reason to fear for your safety around police. Unity means that you will put your money into businesses of color, and you will take it out of businesses that discriminate and oppress and exploit communities of color. Unity means that you do not just enjoy the art, heart, and vibrancy that our communities of color have provided this city. It means that you recognize us as not only valued but necessary members of this community. Communities that need to stay. Communities that are more important than a cold, soulless vision of capitalist progress. Unity means marching for Black lives even if you are not Black. Unity means searching for missing and murdered Indigenous women even if they are not your sisters, your wives, or your daughters. Unity means fighting for a Seattle where trans and non-binary people feel safe using any public restroom, are safe from employment discrimination, and are given affirming health care even if you are cisgender. Unity means expecting a ramp to open up access to public buildings and private businesses even if you have no problem taking the stairs. Unity means expecting that every person in this city will have a safe place to sleep at night. Unity means recognizing that if you are allowed into rooms where decisions are made, and I'm not talking about the great big decisions, even though some people in this room get to make the great big decisions, because the great big decisions are relative. Whether you get to be in a PTA meeting, an HR meeting, a church meeting, recognize that you are not only required to speak up for those who aren't in the room, but you are required to open the door to let them in. Unity means being open to hearing about the harm you may have done and the oppression you may have been complicit in, without defensiveness and without ego, with the aim of finding where you can do better. And I know that's hard. It's one of those weird things about being a human being. We don't want to hurt people. We don't like hearing we've hurt people. It is a normal human response when you find out you have, to want to reset things, to want to say that's not true, to want to find evidence that you did not do harm. And that is normal for a moment. And it's selfish if you let it stay. Unity means hearing the hard truths that aim to bring you closer to the you that you claim to be, and saying, thank you. And you say thank you even if you didn't want to hear it. You say thank you even if it didn't come with a please. You say thank you even if it didn't come nicely, even if you weren't prepared, even if you didn't ask for it. You still say thank you. Because someone decided that you could hear them. Someone decided you were worth the time and the effort and that you had the capability of doing better. And they told you how. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. So, think of our city. Think of the block you live on. Think of the blocks you drive by with your doors locked. Think of your workplace, of your schools, and see your reflection in everyone you have overlooked, everyone you have passed by, everyone you have dismissed, and ask, am I what I ought to be? I don't know for sure why people ask me to do these talks. And I say this because I know that people want to celebrate. There is a lot in Dr. King's legacy to celebrate. But don't get it twisted. Dr. King was about the work. And I prefer to honor. We will celebrate when the work is done. And so, if it seems like I'm painting a grim picture of this city where it's at, know that, like I said earlier, I am saying it because I believe we can do better. We need to reach out, we need to listen up, we need to speak out, and most importantly, we need to act out in order to be who we ought to be. Our actions towards justice should be felt by those who need it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is not an eat, pray, love journey. We are in the work of undoing harm. We are in the work of correcting wrongs. We should be looking for our own culpability and looking at what we owe. And we all owe someone. Some of us owe more than others. But that's not my business. My business is what I owe. Your business is what you owe. And if we all focused on that, if we all looked for our own reflections in our community and acted upon what we saw, the city would be a better place. I love this city. I know that sometimes it's hard for people to recognize that when they hear me consistently. I don't know if nagging's the right word. Very quietly yelling at the city. See my tone? Isn't it lovely? It's infuriating to my children, by the way. This is the tone they get when I'm telling them to do better. I love this city. That's why I'm here. I love the beautiful, endless potential of this city and everyone in it. I am a product of this city, for better or for worse. I love what this city ought to be. And I need us to start asking what this city ought to be, without expecting anyone to be sacrificed for that vision. It breaks my heart when we talk about the future of this city and we pretend like there are people that we can erase from it. We pretend like we can write asterisks in the story of this city where all of these other people fall into, all of these outliers to our statistics of wealth and health. No one is an outlier in this city. No one is an asterisk in this city. We are a reflection of everyone that we have passed over, everyone we have left behind, everyone we have dismissed, everyone that we are afraid of when we're walking down the street. That is us. And we will never be more than that. I want us to do this work together. I want us to be able to look at each other, to look at our community and see the dazzling potential in every person here. I want us to recognize that if we don't all get through together, we don't get through at all. I want us to recognize that none of us are martyrs to progress, none of us are sacrifices to progress, that we are progress. Our well-being, our health, our beauty, our recognition, our inclusion is progress. And I am excited to see what that will look like. I am excited to be in a city that is what it ought to be. And the beauty is all you have to do as individuals is try to be who you ought to be by making sure that when you see your neighbors, when you look on this city, you see everyone as worthwhile, as your family, as your community, and you act accordingly. All you have to do is mind your business, but make sure that we are your business. I keep hoping that one day I'll get to bring up one of these speeches and say, see what we've done? And I think we will. And so I will end this with a celebration deferred. We honor today because we aren't there yet. But I would not do this work, and honestly would not be in this city if I didn't think that that celebration was in our future. And I hope that when we get there, that you'll invite me, and that everyone will feel welcome. Thank you.
All right, y'all, one more time, one more round of applause, please. So we're going to take some time out now to do a Q&A. We get to do a Q&A, and I don't know how much time we have and how many people will get this opportunity. I do want to say something about that tone you was talking about, that steady tone right there. That tone right there gets on my nerves. You hear me? Listen, my wife uses that tone, and it makes me mad. It makes me mad. I needed to come up a little bit or go down a little bit, one of the two, but to stay right there makes me mad. Baby, where's the remote? Where's the remote? I don't know where the remote is. What did you do with the remote? I gave the remote to you. Where's the remote? I don't know where the remote is, honey. We gonna make it, though. We newlyweds. We gonna make it. We gonna make it. Let's start this Q&A. Awesome job. Oh my God. Did you want to sit down? You want a stool? You want to sit down? You good or? You just.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit.
Not a problem. Not a problem. All right. So I thought my job was going to be a real simple one, where I just had to point at people. That's not what's going to happen. So what we're going to do is give you this mic. Yeah. That's your mic, and I'm going to go out here.
Okay.
Okay? Hold on. You got it? Dave, can we get that mic on?
Hello?
There it is right there. There it is right there. Y'all see, I was getting ready to jump out there, but I remember how old I was. Let me stop there.
Right.
Back in the day, I'd have jumped that. You hear me? I'd have been off of that. Any questions for this beautiful artist? Anybody? Where we at? Over here? Amen.
Thank you. The world is in such turmoil right now, and you talked about 50 years ago when negative stuff was happening, a lot of directed to African American people. I feel like we're going completely backwards, and it's very disturbing, and I don't think people really openly address what has been done to black people and the impact it's had on us for generations, and it probably will not be corrected in our lifetime. Could you shed some light on that?
Yes. We are over 400 years into extreme intergenerational trauma as Black Americans, and I think that's a shared history that we have with Native people as well. And the ways in which the violent racism of chattel slavery have woven into all of our systems to make sure that not only do we never heal, but that we will continue to be harmed, are devastating. And our refusal to honestly deal with this as a country, the refusal of white America to recognize that it is first and foremost white America, and that every white American has made contributions to the harm that white America has done and continues to do to people of color in this country. The refusal of white Americans to take ownership of whiteness and say, this is enough. We need to do more. We need to fix harm done. It compounds the harm that's already been done. We're in a really dangerous time right now because due to many factors, one, the mass incarceration of activists in the 70s and the 80s took away our entire generation of leaders in movements that kept us pushing forward in ways that was making real progress. But there's also been a story of progress that is false, especially in the 80s and 90s, that said we were doing so much better than we were. And it has made us complacent as a society. It has opened the door to violent white supremacy to be normalized in a way that it has not been. I really hope people understand I'm not speaking vaguely, and I'm not just speaking about how you vote. I am saying that in this state, we have violent white militias arming themselves for what they believe is the next race war. We had arrests this week. Some of them have been targeting my family for a year. All across this country, we have the normalization of race-based hatred, of white supremacist terror in this country. And not only have we been living with run-of-the-mill white supremacy our entire lives, but now we have this additional fear as we see the historical trauma of our parents and our grandparents coming back to us in present-day horrors. It is vital that we work on a multi-pronged approach, that we look not only at our systems that are harming and oppressing people, that we look not only for how we can make people of color safe today, but also that we look towards societal solutions that reject white supremacy in all forms. We cannot allow this as a difference of thought, as some sort of debate. We are talking about people's lives. And we have to start taking it seriously. We have to start treating this like the cancer that it is and cut it out before it kills the country.
Back here.
Hi, thank you. My name's Mary. I'm from Seattle. I'm a Seattle girl. I'm also biracial. And I love my mostly white church. I love my white church. It's mostly white anyway. And I love my white family. But I withdrew from church because I got tired of always trying to explain and justify and sort of redirect people to, resources about white fragility and, all the books that are out there, including yours. So how do we continue to do our own self-care, which, I have to do that so I can continue to get out there every day, but at the same time, feel like we're moving forward and like we're not always justifying and explaining and just feeling like we're hitting a wall. I'm really tired of explaining.
What I'll say first to this is everywhere I go to talk, the questions are kind of split into two groups. Usually it's white people saying, how can I not get yelled at if I'm trying to do this or not get called racist? How do I talk to my uncle that voted for Trump? And people of color are saying, how can I continue to pull myself apart for the betterment of people who don't want to hear me and don't want to do better? How can I continue when I am tired, when I've sacrificed myself, my family, my community? How can I keep doing this? Because no one else will. I hope that in this question, that the white people in this audience see not only the inherent unfairness of this, but the cruelty of it. And see where your complacency might lie in that. See where you are expecting people to bring their own pain to you so that you can better understand what has been documented for hundreds of years. See how many times of a day you think something isn't about race without pausing to ask, what is my privilege keeping me from understanding right now? Who am I not listening to? I would say the most important thing for you is to recognize, I have to remind myself this as well. We are not fighting to defeat white supremacy. We are fighting for our humanity and for the ability to thrive. We are fighting because we love ourselves and we believe in ourselves and our community. White supremacy is the thing that is stopping that. But we are fighting for ourselves. And if you're fighting for yourself, and that informs what you do, then that means how you act is going to vary depending on what your body and your soul tells you that you need. And ask, does this serve me? Does this serve my community? And when you're tired and you need to rest, be tired. And when you need the people who say they love you to do their own homework, tell them to do their own homework. And when you feel like you need to have that tough conversation, have that tough conversation. But know that if you are lost in the battle, we have lost. You are more important than white supremacy. I am more important than white supremacy. Not one single person of color in this room, in this country, in this world should be sacrificed to white supremacy. And if you let yourself, your humanity, and the people you love be your guide, then it removes that idea. I think a lot of times we have this pressure. We think if we stop being vigilant, we failed ourselves or our community, or we failed the mission, or we failed the movement. If we let anything go, we failed. If we lose the friendship of one white person who might have been a better person, we failed. We only fail when we fail ourselves and when we fail our communities. When we fail to listen to what we need and react accordingly. And so long as you do that, you will be being consistent and you will be best serving the movement for racial justice.
All right, we're over here.
I want to thank you for being here. I heard you speak a couple times. It's inspiring, and everyone here too. I feel that this community just brings us together. And I'm a refugee, Latinx queer, and it feels so great to hear the value of bringing your voice. But in the power of unity, I had many times to lose parts of me. So when you were talking about unity, what it means to be united, and many times it means to lose who I am, which hurts deeply. Mm-hmm. And I hear the voices, so I'm sure we have all felt it. So in the power of unity, what does that mean? And I want to hear what you have to think, because a lot of the times I think it means to be challenged. But why do I have to continue to challenge myself when I feel that others have to learn to be uncomfortable with that, have what they have always in their whole life to be comfortable? Why should I have to feel myself uncomfortable when that's all I've been used to? Mm-hmm. And I'm tired. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One thing that I would definitely say when I talk about recognizing the inherent value of everyone, including ourselves, I think that one thing people forget is the capacity for growth and change on behalf of whiteness. And the reason why I say this is we really act as if white people can't grow and change. And that's a narrative that comes from whiteness. Oh no, be patient with me. Tell me again. Explain to me a third time. Say it really nicely so I won't get upset. No, set this aside. I'm not ready for it yet. I can't handle it. I might die. I might drop dead. I might cry if I hear the reality of the world or if it's not about me. Part of recognizing the value and the potential of people is recognizing that white people are as capable of dealing with difficulty, of making adjustments, of hearing people who are different from them, of being involved in projects that do not center them, as we are. And unity means recognizing the value of your labor, recognizing that you have been asked for far too much, and recognizing that others are just as capable as you of giving. And that unity means to come into community with people. It means that people are meeting you as well as you meeting them. And that you won't be asked to sacrifice who you are or leave who you are at the door. Because if they recognize your inherent value, then it should be in the room. I think that we need to understand that it is a very pessimistic idea that we have to handhold whiteness through anti-racism. It is a very pessimistic idea of what we think white people are capable of. I'm always looking and going, is this the white supremacy, the great white supremacy that starts crying because someone said something was racist? We have to recognize that we are capable of being better and then saying, now go be better because I know you can, and not accepting less. We need to stop allowing people to just sit in community with us and take their badges home because they sat there and talked over us and then felt good about themselves for doing it. I believe, and my mother is white. I have white friends, if you will. And I believe that they are capable. I have seen that they are capable of having hard conversations. I've seen that they are capable of building community with people different from them, and that means addressing where the most need is, even if it's not their own. I have seen they are capable of growth. I've seen they are capable of addressing harm they've done and making it right. And so, because I have seen it, I refuse to accept less. And I do not think I make whiteness better by accepting less. And I certainly don't make myself better by accepting less. And so I hope that you recognize that unity does not mean that you are constantly leaving parts of yourself at the door to fit through whatever shape is necessary to stand next to people. Unity means that people recognize you, your wholeness, and they stand next to you, even if they don't see their own for immediate benefit, because they care about you, because you're a human being, because we've all agreed in this kind of social contract that we will hold each other, we will hold space for each other, we will protect each other, that we will be community together. And don't feel guilty about that. And if you need to tell white people, you're better than this, do better, then do it. And know that they do. And I've seen people, I wouldn't say I always get the best reaction when I say that, but I've watched people grow. I've never watched them grow when they've been coddled. I have never watched people say, oh, thank you, you listened to me say that racist thing 20 times, and on the 25th time I finally got it, and I would have never gotten it otherwise if you hadn't let me do this harm over and over and over and over. And now I magically value you as a person because you've let me harm you so much. That's the story in movies. That's not how it works in real life. There is a very valuable lesson that white America can learn when we show that we know that their value is no greater than ours. And when we show that we know that they are capable of as much sacrifice and as much work as we are, and we expect it.
Hello, oh, I'm over here.
And speaking today, thank you so much. I've listened to speaking about 50 years ago, how it was and how it still is. And then listening to Bruce and listening to Larry and saying, we need to pass it on, right? We need to build those. Somebody else needs to pick up the torch. And I speak with youth, and I deal with youth a lot. So in having a conversation with youth, and what they're used to hearing is how it was and how it still is. They're used to hearing, you must fight. They're used to hearing about injustice. They're used to hearing about how if we don't, then this is how it's going to happen. It's truth, but it's truth being presented to someone who is just coming into a world that is maddening. It's crazy. And we are trying to build up character in them. We're trying to build up fighters in them. But you have to start somewhere with hope. Mm-hmm. And if all of our conversations are about fight, 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 mm-hmm. Go, 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 look, 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 see, don't be blind, listen. Where are we nurturing the place where a seed could be planted that can bring hope? Because I can fight as long as I see that there's an end to this. When I'm constantly being told over and over again, because it's necessary to be told the truth. But I know how I deal with I'm speaking to youth. How would you help others to deal with the fact that although I'm telling you that you must do this, there are some kids that ask the question, then why did you let me be born? Mm-hmm. If this is all that I got to look forward to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that is one of the fundamental questions that we need to continue to ask ourselves through struggle. And I think in it lies one of the biggest cruelties and mistruths in the battle against white supremacy, which is the idea that we as people of color are going to be the ones to defeat it. This system that we did not build and that we do not benefit from. That it's our job. We are doing white America's job. So first and foremost, I think it's important to recognize this is not work we should be doing. We have our own communities to tend to. We have our own families to care for. And we're doing it while living under a white supremacist system. This means our bandwidth is shorter. You who benefit from it, you who help maintain it, you are the ones who need to clean your own house. This idea of where do we find time to live while we're also fighting, while we're also, doing all of these other things is based in something that's fundamentally white supremacist in nature, which is the thought that this is our struggle. We will fight because we have no choice. But what I try to keep in mind and what I try to tell people when I go and I speak to colleges, speak to young people, is what I said to the person in the back here, which is that I am more important than white supremacy. We are all more important than white supremacy. And if I accept that truth, I also accept the other truth, which is white supremacy will likely live longer than me. So what does that mean? What does that mean if I am more important than white supremacy and white supremacy will outlast me, my family, my community? It means that it is my duty to thrive. It is my duty to reassert every day that I know I'm more important than white supremacy. And this means the time I spend, I have to spend more time on my community, more time living in joy, more time appreciating what we have created, what we can create, who we are, more time nurturing the young people, spending time with my kids, spending time with youth and community, than I spend focused on white supremacy. Because if we defeat white supremacy and we are defeated at the same time, we have lost. I do not want us to come through it broken. I want us to come through it proud, singing, dancing, strong, beautiful, healthy. We deserve to not only survive, we deserve to thrive. And that is fundamentally why we are doing this work. And so it is important that, as a community, we recognize that our victory will only lie where we thrive. But also that the white people in this room and in this country recognize that you have abdicated your responsibility to clean your house to us. That you've decided, even if you believe that racism is bad, that this is a choice that you get to make. That you can choose when you want to fight racism and when you don't. When this matters and when it doesn't. Well, we are trying to survive. We want to thrive. We want to be able to put our time and attention on our communities. And this means that you need to put your time and attention in your community and the legacy of white supremacy that your community carries. And do your work so we can do ours. Because our community is just as worthy of care. And right now we're having to split our time and our energies. Even me as a writer, I'm finishing my second book that is steeped in white supremacy at great personal cost, but also at the cost of what I believe as someone who is a good writer, who doesn't get to write solely for community and in community. I don't get to write for the pleasure of my community. No one, people of color, outside of maybe the validation they get from my books, don't pick up my books and say, oh, this made my day. I'm writing about violent white supremacy. I don't want to. I think that it's important to recognize, and it's important for me to recognize as well, it's important for all of us to recognize that if we don't value ourselves as people of color, if we don't prioritize that value above all else, we will lose this battle. And that we have to be able to recognize victory, because this will outlast us. In every person of color that is allowed to thrive. In every life saved, we have to recognize victory. Because that's how we reaffirm our value. And that's the only way we can get there.
All right, we're right here. We got this one and then one more after this. Thank you so much for being here. I am here with a colleague. We are both teachers at Alki Elementary, and we are currently working in a small professional group that is reading your book. And we're right in the middle of it, and I have so many questions. You know, it's easy for me to take my students out and to walk on the ground and tell them that they're walking on the ground of the Duwamish. And it's easier for me to teach them how to, or to honor that, because there's the ground and we can see it and we can be at the same place right there that they were. Our student body, about 350, 360 students, it's largely a white community. We do have students of color within our population, and we have been charged with teaching about racism. So asking you, for the members of our book club that are reading this book, do you have any words of advice for us? We're right in the middle of the book. What would the author tell us? What can I take back to this group of educators that want to do so well with this?
A couple of things. First and foremost, though, I want to say one little thing, which is oftentimes I see, especially when I'm talking to teachers and they're talking about race and we're talking about Native people, it's important to recognize that Duwamish people are not just a land and it's not just a story of land stolen. Duwamish people are here, right? Still creating and existing, and we honor that by recognizing that. And I think a lot of times, especially the way in which we do land acknowledgements, often as white people, we talk as if we're talking about a people that don't exist, and as if there's no other way to pay what we owe, right? Real Rent Duwamish exists, right? There are different programs we can support Native businesses. Talking to kids about Native people, knowing that they exist and they're here and what they're doing now, not only, and while still being very honest about, the brutality visited upon Native people by white supremacy, I think is incredibly important. I think oftentimes when we talk about teaching race and racism to students, we talk as if the people don't exist. And we do this with Black American history. We completely erase Asian American history as if, and Latinx history. We act as if the people that fought and died disappeared. And there's these two different blocks of history. There was the bad times and there's now. And often those stories rarely include stories of prominent activists, of prominent artists, inventors, right? The people whose legacy is still contributing wonderful, positive things as well. Students, I find often, students of color are very traumatized by the entire month of February. I would say is, if you're going through my work in a school, it's important to recognize, fundamentally what I find is that schools don't want to recognize that they are a work environment and an educational environment. And if you don't settle the work environment problem first, which means you're not prioritizing the voices of teachers of color, you're not making it easy for marginalized teachers and staff members to report what they're seeing, if they aren't feeling included, if they're not feeling valued, and if you aren't prioritizing their voices and what they're saying needs to happen, you're never going to get anywhere with students. And so I would say look at those twofold. A lot of times people want to skip and go, no, it's about the students. It's not about the students too, because these are people, and you're creating an environment first and foremost in your staff lounges, right? And the HR policies you have around race for fellow teachers. And then I would say, while you're working through the tough emotional stuff, right, put policy in place. I'm always shocked when I'm brought into schools and I'm asked to solve these issues of getting teachers to recognize students of color or of equal value, recognizing the unique traits and value they bring into a classroom, trying to get that one racist teacher to see that they need to work on their problems, all of these issues that can take multiple years. And I ask them, what's your policy for if a student is called a racial slur and they don't have one? Right? Work on the emotional stuff, work on the knowledge stuff. In the meantime, put policies in place. Say if everything were to fail us, if every student was going to come repeating every racist thing they heard in the classroom today, what policies would we have to keep our students safe? If every teacher was going to bring all their biases in today and use them against our students of color, what policies do we have in place? Not what classes are we going to have, not how many meetings are we going to have, what policies do we have in place that say, no matter how bad your day is, you cannot do this. It is so vital that we recognize, because what we do when we don't do that otherwise is we are sacrificing our children's education to the enlightenment of teachers who should already know better. And we can't do that. And so it's important to look at that twofold. And I know that teachers rarely want to assume the worst. They want to wait till the problem happens. I go into so many classes and they're saying, well, it hasn't happened. Isn't that a negative environment if we assume that people are going? No, it's a positive environment, because we know it is positive to never have to use your rules against racist slurs, your rules against biased teaching. But you won't have to use them if you have them in place. The moment you don't have them in place, you're creating an environment where that sort of behavior flourishes. And then you're trying to catch up on the backs of your students. And so that's where I would say, for each discussion, for each chapter, try to look twofold and say, what are we encouraging in this work environment? What are we encouraging with students? And what can we do policy-wise on both levels to stop us from our worst selves while we work on becoming better people.
All right, and we're right here with our last question. Well, I had to stop here. It's Black History Month. I got to stop with somebody black, so.
Welcome. I have three kids who are biracial. My mother's white. And so I've got a history of living in the black culture, and she has not. My work and what I've found over the last many years is trauma and dehumanization is really hurting white folks, and they don't know it. We come up as, oh, we're hurt, but can you imagine why, white folks are afraid of 7% of people? Why do they create laws that put a few black folks in jail over and over again? So this trauma is not just really what we're doing, but it hurts them, their lives, and I think people don't think about it that way. They're traumatically managed in a way that they hurt the whole society, and in effect, dehumanizing themselves. They're no longer human. They don't realize that. So it's my learning over time. It's not just my trauma, but there's shared trauma, and I think people understood it, they might work a little harder at changing some of that.
What I would say is, here's the caveat before I speak. I shouldn't have to sell this to white people. Even if there's no benefit to whiteness, you should be doing this work because it's the right thing to do. That being said, you're not living full lives if you can't look in the mirror. If you can't recognize what you are doing, if you are afraid of seeing your contribution to society, if you're afraid of investigating this fear that you have in the back of your brain, every time if you just shove it away and go, oh, that's a bad thought, don't think it, instead of thinking, where did I learn that? How is this informing my actions? Who is this stopping me from connecting from? Then you're not walking through the world as a whole person. And if you want to do that, if you want to look in the mirror without fear and know that you're not perfect, but you are openly, actively working towards the person that you would like to be, then you have to address the racism that lives within you and within your community. It will make your life better. But you will first have to do that work, and you will first have to shift your definition of better, because it will mean opening yourself up to pain. It will mean first seeing yourself as less great than you thought you were. It will mean having to divorce your identity from your supposed superiority over people of color. It will mean that you will have to judge how you feel about yourself on your own accomplishments, on how you are as a neighbor and a friend and a community member, instead of looking in the mirror at the end of the day and going, at least I'm not black. And that is scary. But you will not be so reactionary. A black president won't be so scary. A black man walking down the street won't be so scary. Opening up your neighborhood to diverse people and families won't be so scary. It will be joyful. And it is the only way forward. But I shouldn't have to say that. It shouldn't matter. And it's important to recognize that too, because there will be times where you won't be able to see the direct benefit, and you're still going to have to do the right thing. Because you said you were a person who believed in freedom and equality. And so this is what you have to do. So know that, recognize, and I try to explain to white people all again, look at whiteness. Look at whiteness as a culture. Look at what whiteness is producing and say, is this what I want? Or do I want something different? And if not you, then who? And so decide that you are going to make it different. Start having those conversations with your family, with your community members, and make whiteness something that you're proud of. Where being proud of who you are is not something that you're throwing out at people of color to try to scare and intimidate them. but it comes from a genuine place of growth and progress where you saw something you didn't like and you worked to fix it. You worked to be more and better. You worked to live your values. White supremacy and racism will stop you from doing that. There's no way you can claim to be a good person and see the reality of the oppression you participate in and do nothing. And so what many people try to do then is to just not see. But then you won't be able to see any good that you really do. You won't be able to fully be proud of what you've accomplished. If you don't see your whole self, you don't see the best or the worst. And you need that as a person. I've even seen this in my own work, because I think even as people of color, as a Black woman, my survival at times has depended on not seeing every slight, right? Not hearing every comment. And eventually you keep doing that enough and you don't live as a whole person. And opening myself up to all of that has been incredibly painful at times, but I feel every bit of progress. I feel every bit of joy in a way that I never did before. And that sort of wholeness, where you're fully living and fully seeing yourself and fully seeing the direction you're going in, is something that can be available to everyone. But we all have to be willing to open our eyes and being willing to take those hits that will make us a better person. And whiteness needs to do that. It's vital, because it's not just that you're holding out on yourself, but it's literally killing people of color. And so you have to. Every day that you don't means that whenever you decide to look, it's going to be an even bigger burden for you. So you might as well look now. Thank you.
All right, y'all. A round of applause. Keep that round of applause going for everybody that was on stage tonight. We would like to thank our past and present partners, the Mayor's Office, City of Seattle, Seattle City Council, Seattle City Light, Seattle Center, Seattle Fire Department, Seattle Information and Technology, Seattle Parks, Seattle Police Department, Seattle Public Utilities, Department of Education and Early Learning, City Clerk's Office, Department of Neighborhoods, City Auditor, Law Department, Office of Arts and Culture, Seattle Office of Civil Rights, Office of Economic Development, and the Seattle Public Utilities African American Affinity Group. Put your hands together for all of them. We want to thank again our guest speaker who killed the game, man. My name is Isiah Anderson Jr., your MC. I love what I do. I am honored always to come back here every year. I look forward to seeing you all next year. We're going to let the band take us out with a little something, something. And we need some going home music. Have a good night.